Whether you're hosting a garden party or just inviting some family over, I've got some great summer hors d'oeuvres for you today on Let's Cook. Hi, welcome to Let's Cook, where we are doing summer hors d'oeuvres. Now, these hors d'oeuvres, they're good for the summer, but they're also great in the fall, spring, or winter. So we could actually call this year-round hors d'oeuvres. Now, before we get started, let's just take a look at today's menu. Fried beef on a stick, seared tuna with a spicy onion custard or flan, and kibasi with sauerkraut. Great hors d'oeuvres. Now, in this segment, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make the beef on a stick, and I'm going to start the onions for the onion custard. But let's go with the beef on a stick first. The first thing I'm going to do is I have some nuts here. I have some wonderful hazelnuts here. So I'm going to take some hazelnuts. With that, I'm going to mix an equal amount of panko or Japanese breadcrumbs. If you can't get them, you can use fresh breadcrumbs. Then we have all our different seasonings that we're putting in here. A little paprika, little cayenne, little garlic powder, little cumin, a little bit of coriander. We just mix this all together. And all we're going to do is just finely chop this really well so that we can dredge our beef in this. Now the nuts contain, I'm going to shut this off for a second, the nuts contain a lot of oil. So when you do this, you need to pulse this a little bit on and off, because if you draw out too much of the oil, it really won't work. Okay, this is beautiful. So now I'm going to take my seasoned nuts with the breadcrumbs here, and I'm just going to put them in a pan here. I also have some more hazelnuts here that I'm going to add to this. Just kind of mix this together. Now, this is all I'm going to dredge the beef in. The next thing I'm going to do is, let me just get this out of the way here. I have an egg. Now, you can use egg white or a whole egg to do this with, but we'll just take the egg. We'll drop the egg in there. Beat the egg up. Now, whenever you beat an egg and you're making an egg wash, it's a good idea to add a little splash of water to it and a pinch of salt. Just a pinch. Take this, we'll beat this up. Now, the beef that I'm using, you could use beef tenderloin or you could use sirloin. It should be somewhat tender. You don't really want to use a tough cut of meat. Now, I have my meat here, and what I've done is I've taken the meat and I've put it on little skewers. It almost looks like a lollipop. But I'll just take the beef here. Now, there's a lot of seasoning here in a breading mixture that we're going to use, so I'm not going to put any seasoning on the beef right now. And then I just take these, dip them into the egg wash here. Let's just be deep enough. And then we just roll them right here in the nut mixture. Now, the interesting thing about this is you could also take these if you did not want to deep fry them, and you could bake them as well. It's going to work for you. So we'll just take and we just dredge these right into coating. Now you need to pick up the coating and just kind of press it onto the meat there so you get a really nice coating on this. Just drop it in the oil, let that start to fry. The meat should still be medium rare when these are done. So let me get another, I'll get about 3 of these in here, because this is a real nice item. Coat that well. And again, because the nuts are a little dark and the seasoning is a little dark, it's not going to be golden brown. It's going to get dark. It's going to get a little dark. It's going to have a nice color. And a great accompaniment for this hors d'oeuvre would be a little bit of barbecue sauce. So that's what I'm actually going to serve this with. Let's see how this looks. See how nice this looks? Out of this world. Beautiful. And once we start to get nice and golden brown, you see how, okay, this one here is done. The great thing about this is you can pull these right out, put them on absorbent paper toweling, and then again, when you're doing an hors d'oeuvre, it's it's just a little bite of food here, so it should be bite size, but you do need a nice presentation for this. Now, the one thing that I will do once I take them out of the oil is I will take a little bit of salt and season the outside with just a little bit of salt to make sure they're well seasoned. Then I come over here. I already have a plate set up for these. Now the plate, what I did is I took and I have this dish right here and I put a little shredded lettuce in here. The shredded lettuce is to help these stand up. And then what I have is on this small plate here, which is rounded, I put a little bit of salt. I put a little bit of salt on the plate so that the sauce won't fly around. And that way the salt and the sauce The salt will hold the sauce dish in place so that when you go to serve it, see how you can just stand these right up here and you get a really nice presentation on these for this great summer hors d'oeuvre. So that's the first thing that we're doing. The next thing that we're doing is we're making an onion flan or custard. And what I need to do is I need to start my onions and caramelize them a little bit. So let me just show you how you would do that. I'm going to start the pan here with just whole butter and just a little bit of olive oil. Then we'll take our onion. We're going to cut the onion. Now, when you cut the onion, what you need to do is you actually need to take the onion and slowly brown it and caramelize it. So when you cut the onion, we'll cut it across this way. We'll bring it down this way because it's going to cook down in size. Then we just take this, cut this down this way, and we can start the onions right in the butter and oil right here. Out of this world. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of salt in here. And additionally, I'm going to put a little bit of leek in there. Leek is also with the onion family. With the leek, I'm using the whiter part of the leek here. It is less bitter. And I'll just split it down this way. And I'll cut it about the same size as the onions. So I'm going to get my onions browning here. We're going to take a little break because don't go anywhere. When we come back, I'm going to sear some tuna and finish our spicy onion custard to go with our summer hors d'oeuvres. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Let's Cook, where we are making some great summer hors d'oeuvres for you today. And hors d'oeuvres are defined as small, savory appetizers served right before the meal, customarily with an aperitif or cocktail. They are usually 1 or 2 bite size and can be served hot or cold. Now I'm going to start on our flan or our onion custard. Now, in the segment before, I started to brown my onions, and this is what the onions look like when they're nice and brown. And you need to let them cool down, but you really need to just let them cook down, really draw out the flavors, allow that to cool down. Now we need to make the custard. To make the custard, it's very simple. We're going to take some eggs here. So I have 1, 2, I'll use 3 eggs in this with no shell. That's why it's a good idea to sometimes take the egg and break it in a dish, making sure you don't have any shell in there. Then we'll take and we'll add our cream to this. Along with our cream, we're going to make this a little spicy. So I have some cayenne pepper right here. Add that to that. And then we season this with a little bit of salt and just a little bit of white pepper here. We mix this together. Now, we're going to cook these in a ramekin or a porcelain dish here. So I already have these set up right here. And what I did with these is I took and I sprayed them with a little bit of oil. You know, just the spray oil you get in a supermarket. If not, you could use butter. Then what we do is we take our onions here, and in the bottom of each one, I just put a little bit of onion. Just enough so it comes about halfway up the dish. Now you can see that these onions have really cooked down. Then we add our custard to this. It's a good idea to put the onions in first and then add the custard to it. So now I'll take my custard right here. Just add my custard to this. A little bit at a time. You want to mix this very well. You don't need a lot of air in here. The eggs are going to coagulate it. So I'll get my custard in here. This is such an easy dish. And again, you can make this ahead and you can actually just heat this up lightly in a microwave or a nice slow oven, or you can take it right out of the oven the way I'm going to do it here. So we have our custard in there, and then what we'll do is with the spoon, we take and we just agitate the bottom here to make sure that that custard is all the way through and that all the onions are wet. Now that actually causes the onions to float up a little bit. Now I'll take my pan right here. I'm going to get this in the oven. And then what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of water, 350-degree oven, and I'll put a little bit of water in the bottom of the oven here just to create a water bath. That's going to prevent the custards from getting really dry. Now I already have one done right here. Beautiful. take this out, make sure that they are nice and firm. So this is the first part of my dish right here, where my custards are nice and tender. They're still nice and warm. Now, the next thing we have to do is we have a little bit of tuna we need to sear. So I have a beautiful piece of tuna right here. And what I'm going to do with the tuna is I'll remove any of the dark part because that contains more, that's a little fishier. Then I'll take and I'll remove the skin right here. Get rid of that skin. I'm going to take and I'm going to cut this about 1/4 of an inch square. So I'll just take 2 slices for right now. Take the tuna here. I'm going to cut it down this way. Now, if you'd like, you can have, wherever you buy your fish, you can have your fish person do this for you or your fishmonger. So we're going to cut this down this way, and then I'm going to season this just with a little bit of salt and pepper. Let me heat up my pan here, because in the pan here, I'm going to use somewhat of a neutral oil, like a safflower oil. You could use even a light olive oil. Get that pan very hot. So let's get that oil in there. Want to get that nice and hot, and then we'll just take our tuna and season it right before it goes in the dish. Okay, now this really doesn't take too long to cook. Little bit of white pepper here, little bit of salt. Just kind of toss this around. Now, we need to make sure that the oil is really nice and hot when we drop this in. So let's let that oil just get a little hotter there while I get the custard out. Now, to take the custard out, where's my dish? Oh, I'm going to use this as a dish. What I did with the dish here is I took the dish right here, and it's a nice glass dish, and I took a little bit of some of the leek tops, the green leek tops, and I just cut them in a nice design. Now, remove my custard from this, and it should still be warm. And then with a knife, nice sharp knife, you're going to cut all the way around the edge here, just to release it a little bit. Be careful because it's still a little warm here. Then we're just going to take and drop this out while it's still nice and warm. Okay, see how nice that looks? Doesn't that look terrific? Now we're ready to get our tuna going. We'll just take our tuna, going to drop the tuna in the pan here. And now I really will not move the tuna at all. Just going to actually use a pair of tongs, and I'm going to sear this tuna. It's still rare, but I just want a little bit of color on it. See how we just take it? We sear it this way. Now, you could sear it in a larger piece and slice it, but I like it this way, where I turn the tuna over, and then as soon as the tuna is seared, I'm going to go ahead and start to place it right on the dish here. Doesn't this look terrific? So here we have our delicious custard with our seared tuna. It's an onion custard. It goes really well together. Okay? We need to take a little break, and then when we come back, I'm going to make a delicious sweet sauerkraut relish to go with some wonderful kielbasa. It's summer hors d'oeuvres today on Let's Cook. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Let's Cook, where I am making summer hors d'oeuvres. Before I start the sauerkraut, I have an interesting fact for you. Did you know that although sauerkraut is German for sour cabbage and is thought of as a German invention, Chinese laborers building the Great Wall of China over 2,000 years ago ate it as standard fare? It's true. Chinese sauerkraut, made from shredded cabbage, fermented in rice wine, eventually found its way to Europe, where the Germans adopted it as one of their favorite dishes. Now, I'm not making a traditional sauerkraut today. I'm actually making a sweet Bavarian relish, or sauerkraut relish. Let me explain the ingredients, or I'll go over the ingredients that we're going to use to make it. Now, to make this, we have some sauerkraut that we washed and drained well. I have some red onions, some peppers, red and green, parsley, vinegar, sugar, and a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. This is such an easy relish to make. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take my sugar here with a little bit of oil here, just a little bit of olive oil there, and my vinegar. Almost as if I was making almost like a potato salad. And I'm just going to make sure that that sugar gets totally dissolved before I add the rest of the ingredients, because we don't want grains of sugar there. Then we just take this along with our sauerkraut, And again, remember, make sure you wash the sauerkraut and drain it real well before you make this relish. Then we take our red onions, parsley, green onions, and red peppers, and any assortment thereof, and we just toss this together. Now you need to allow this to marinate overnight, and once it marinates overnight, it kind of softens up to a point where the peppers actually kind of bleed out, and I can actually show you the difference where this is not marinated, and you can see how the color of the peppers kind of comes through into the sauerkraut, so it develops a little bit different color, and it's actually better once it's sat around for a little while. Now, the kielbasa, and I love kielbasa. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this French bread right here, and I'm going to remove both ends of this. Then I have to somehow get the kielbasa in it so it looks like this. The easiest way to do this is to take a dowel, a wooden dowel right here, start at the one end, kind of work your way through. Now, the reason I took off both ends is because the bread that I'm pushing out has got to go somewhere. So we need to make sure that we get some of this bread out of the way there, because I have some big sausage here that we're going to put into the bread. So here's my kielbasa. Next step, take a little bit of mustard on the dowel, goes into the bread. A little bit more right here. Then we just take this, get this out of the way here now, and you're going to take this sausage, and by the way, you can do this and freeze this, and then we just take the sausage and we kind of force it into the bread this way. Once you have it forced into the bread, this is really going to help it stay together. We take this plastic wrap, you're going to take this and roll it nice and tight and let it kind of set up in the refrigerator. The reason you do that is then when you go to slice this, you already have the plastic wrap on there, and the plastic wrap kind of helps it stay together. So I'll just show you. See, I have the plastic wrap on this one, and then when I go to cut this, the bread won't tear or rip. See how it kind of helps it stay together? Just make sure that before you put it in the frying pan to fry or saute, that you remove the plastic wrap. Then we'll take our pan, start with a little bit of butter in here. Now the kielbasa is already cooked. The bread is already cooked. All we have to do now is toast it and heat the kielbasa through. By the way, this also works out really well on the grill. So now I just take this, drop it right into the pan here, and let these start to brown up. Let's take a little break. I'm going to go ahead and start to brown up my bread here, stuffed with the kielbasa. Okay, gonna do that. But I just realized I almost forgot this. I have a little bit. I'm going to answer some viewer mail. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to answer that viewer mail when we come back today on Let's Cook, where we're doing wonderful hors d'oeuvres. I'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Let's Cook. Before we get back to the kielbasa, I wanted to answer some viewer mail. Gary sent me a letter and he writes, on the show, when you refer to cooking oil, what type of oil do you mean? That's a good question, Gary. I like to use an oil that is conducive to the dish. So sometimes I'll use olive oil, or sometimes I'll use butter, which is a form of fat or oil. If I don't want a lot of flavor, impart a lot of flavor, I'll use something that's poly or monounsaturated, such as safflower, sunflower, or canola oil. And usually for cooking, you're not going to use a really strong oil like let's say a sesame oil, because that's usually more for flavoring. Now we need to finish the kielbasa. But thanks, Gary. And please keep sending in those emails. I really appreciate it. So for the kielbasa, I have the kielbasa right here. And what I did is it's nicely browned in a pan. And we'll just take this. Okay, actually, I have a plate here for 3 of these. So again, these are a little big, but of course, you know, it's okay. They could have been a little smaller, but this really works for me. So just 3 little kielbasas right here. Then we take our Bavarian relish. Put a little bit of the Bavarian relish there right on the side so that people can take a bite of the bread, a bite of the kielbasa. And remember, we already have mustard inside the bread. But if you want, you could also just put a little bit or a garnish of mustard or a side of mustard there so people could dip it in as well. Oh, I love the summer. I love hors d'oeuvres. I love little bites. Sometimes I even go to a restaurant and I just eat a lot of different appetizers or hors d'oeuvres. I know all of these will work for you. Thank you so much for watching Let's Cook. You have a great day. This relish is out of this world, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.